Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sean Brodrick, senior editor at WeissRatings.com. He's speaking to us from Florida. Welcome back to the show, Sean.
Thanks for having me on.
Sean, how are the battery metals doing right now?
Well, in our portfolios, they're doing great. I mean, we're really seeing some excellent action. Lithium, of course, has been getting a lot of the headlines, but that's not the only one, right? I mean, nickel looks strong. Copper has been really under pressure due to what's going on in places like China, but even that's starting to look a little bit better. A whole bunch of different metals go into these batteries, and that whole group is just really starting to look good. What's happening is, of course, the EV megatrend is just starting to pick up steam again, and steam, of course, these cars run on electricity, not steam, but it is starting to shift into higher gear. Good, we can say that, right? And we are seeing mergers, acquisitions. We're seeing companies come forward with plans to develop new projects. So it's a very exciting space to be in right now.
With a mega trend, does this mean this is going to be like the start of the automobile business all over again, when there were literally hundreds and hundreds of car makers, but then they started to merge and get together, and all of a sudden you have General Motors, which included Chevy and Buick and so on?
Yeah, I know. Well, we really can't make that prediction. Many people would like to see that. And an interesting point of fact, because I looked this up from an article I was writing, over the course of automobile history in the U.S., there were more than 2,000 automobile makers of one type or another that actually opened the doors and then shut their doors. As you said, there's new companies opening, mergers, old companies closing. So it's hard to say, but and it's actually hard to forecast exactly what EV batteries will look like. We know they're working on the next generation ones, which will probably be solid state, and beyond that, there's talk of using different substances in different types of batteries. So the whole thing can change. But those companies that are on the cutting edge, can make good deals, see their revenues going up quarter after quarter, were able to ride out last year's downturn without too much trouble, and many of the EV companies did just fine during that. They were the real upside surprise of the entire automobile space. Well, it's not bad to be investing in that area. I think there's just so much potential, and we could really have a lot of fun with this.
I was watching a report on Bloomberg about the electric revolution that's happening, and they said, well, if you're going to power everything with electricity, we're going to have to double our power grid. What kind of resources is that going to take, and what kind of investment should you be making if they're going to have to double the electrical grid?
Yeah, well, we have some investment in that as well. And one thing about what just happened in New Orleans is much of their electrical grid was shredded. In many ways, this storm was worse than Katrina. It's only because they rebuilt the levees strong enough that they didn't have the kind of water damage that they had during Katrina, even though some people still got flooded and all that stuff. It seems not nearly as bad, but the wind damage was just catastrophic. So one thing they're talking about there is, okay, we have this big infrastructure bill coming through. We're going to be putting money into the electric grid anyway. What if we rebuild the those parts of the electric grid in Louisiana that were knocked out? What if we rebuild them as the next generation electric grid? That's quite exciting too, don't you think? I mean, I don't even know what the next generation electric grid is going to look like. I assume it'll allow people to sell power back to the power company, use solar, use wind to like generate their own. I'm not really sure. But, I mean, that's part of the beauty of a brand new market, of like new ideas, is things change, and they change in exciting ways. So this could be just a real profit opportunity.
And perhaps start building things that are a little more wind resistant. I know you do in Florida, because I was watching a tornado had hit in Oklahoma, and they said, well, we still haven't developed a way to make homes wind resistant to tornadoes and so on. Mm-hmm. And our friends from Florida were visiting, and they said, our house has concrete walls that are a foot and a half thick, and we have steel shutters on the windows, and tornadoes are part of the hurricanes we get. Our house is still there, and we've had 3 storms roll through. So the technology is there if you spend the money.
Right. At like our house, we replaced a whole bunch of windows. Not all our windows, but the ones that are in the obvious, most vulnerable places, with ones that are hurricane resistant. They never say hurricane proof, but you can throw rocks at these things and they aren't likely to break. And why can't they? And one more thing is, we used to have a heck of a lot more power lines here in South Florida. What we had was a string of hurricanes come through and rip them all up. So they rebuilt them as underground power lines. I mean, you see that all over the place. Not everywhere, and there's still plenty of power lines if you're looking for them. I mean, I'm not saying that they've gone away. What I'm saying is the new construction tends to bury it because it's much more storm resistant. And that's one of the things we'll have to change. Now, one problem Florida has, which Louisiana actually has worse, is a high water table. And that's the problem. If you bury power lines in a place where it's going to be flooded, you better make darn sure they're waterproof, right? So there are challenges to this whole thing. It's like none of this is going to be easy. But if we're going to have more storms, if they're going to be stronger storms, and that seems to be the way things are going. I was just reading a story the other day. Scientists are not quite sure why waves are getting bigger. You know, I mean, just the waves out in the ocean are actually becoming bigger for some reason that they can't figure out. There's a lot we don't know. But, so we really have to rethink a lot of our infrastructure because it is becoming more vulnerable, not less vulnerable. We want it to be less vulnerable. That costs money, that costs investment, that costs time, and we really need to get to work on that.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sean Brodrick. Sean, what's going on with gold?
Actually, gold looks pretty good here. I'm not in the bullish camp yet. What happened was last Friday, Fed Chair Powell spoke at Jackson Hole, and he pretty much told the market what it wanted to hear, that the Fed would remain extremely accommodative and wasn't in any hurry to raise interest rates. They'll stop the quantitative easing, or at least start to taper it. There's that word taper in there, right? But basically they aren't going to jack up rates anytime. And so what happened when he said that was gold exploded higher on high volume too. And gold miners, and you always need to watch the miners because they lead the metals on the way up and the way down. Gold miners went up, and I saw a lot of calls across the internet saying new bull market. Not necessarily. We have to see how things close this Friday. It needs to get above overhead resistance and break out of its recent range. Now, it might happen this week, it might happen next week. I'd like it to happen this week. But watch Friday's close. It'll be very interesting. Can gold break out of the range that it fill into. If it can, then I turn a lot more positive. Bullish volume tends to be higher than bearish volume. The Chinese are buying because it's the year of the dragon, and so they're buying all this jewelry that's like dragon-shaped but made out of gold. And also, world gold production peaked back in 2018. It's only going down now, so there's a supply-demand squeeze. Gold coins are flying off the shelves. The U.S. Mint reported that their gold sales in the last month were like double that of the month before. And they're not the only mint reporting that. So there's a lot of factors that could be in the mix for a bullish run in gold. But I would watch Friday's close and see how it goes. And if gold can close up out of its range, that would be a very good sign. But the volume will be the tell. Does it close out higher on strong volume? If it does, then I'm going to turn a lot more bullish on gold and miners.
What's going on with agricultural commodities? In one part of the West, they've had an extensive drought, and some parts of the farming regions had floods earlier in the year. So what has that done for farming production and the commodities?
We invested in wheat. We took gains on it. I'm not really watching the agricultural commodities right now. One thing I'm finding very interesting is uranium, because that's also putting in its own sort of bottom. In fact, Amir Adnani, who runs UEC, Uranium Energy Corp, tweeted this morning that he just saw a bid for uranium for $35. And I haven't seen that yet because my charts update at the end of the day. But if that's true, that'll be the highest price since about 2015. So a lot's going on there, but one of the more recent additions to the mix in uranium has to be the Sprott Funds. There's a new Sprott Fund that's actually investing in this area, and I think that's the reason why we keep seeing uranium stocks rise at the end of the day. I mean, like, by a few percent. Pretty much all the good uranium stocks, there are bad uranium stocks, but all the good uranium stocks across the board. And so that tells me that a big pocketed investor is coming in and buying. I suspect it's Sprott, but, you know, they're just riding the big trend in uranium, which is less supply, more demand, and things look really bullish for it overall.
And again, with that energy report I was watching on Bloomberg, they said uranium, it will likely be the wave of the future because solar and wind just aren't reliable during the times you need the most power, during a storm or a cold snap or a heat wave.
Yeah, the French seem to have figured that out. The Germans not so much, but they'll come around. Germany's trying to close down all of its nuclear power plants, and then realizing that they have to buy more coal power to make up for it, which only makes things worse, right? Now, a lot can change, but it seems that the world seems to be coming around to, yes, nuclear has to be part of the future. The thing that could change that for the worse would be is if we have another accident, another leak like Fukushima, something like that. So knock on wood that we don't have that kind of situation, but right now things look pretty good and seem to be only getting better.
Sean, anything else we should be keeping a close eye on right now?
Well, I'll be speaking I'll be speaking in Las Vegas. I'll be speaking there next month, and so if you want to come see me at the Money Show in Las Vegas, that runs from September 12th to September 14th. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be speaking about cannabis at that, which has been a beaten down industry. But if you look at the individual stocks of the MSOs, their revenues are just rising like crazy, and many of them have become profitable. So they're little cash machines. It's great. Then after that, in October, I'll be at the New Orleans Investment Conference, assuming we're still having it. I haven't heard to the contrary. So everyone should come to that because now we have to support New Orleans because they just get hit by a hurricane again. So if we go there and spend money, they'll they'll really appreciate it. So those two things are coming up. That's not really directly related to the market, but if anyone's interested in seeing me speak in person, and I happen to think I put on a good show, you should come to either Las Vegas for the Money Show or else New Orleans for the New Orleans Investment Conference. One is in September, one's in October. So I look forward to seeing people there.
And I know Sean will show up come hell or high water because I've seen you perform here in Vancouver when I think you had the world's worst cold. And you still shone on stage.
I remember that one, yeah. But yeah, hey, I mean, if I'm not in my coffin, I will show up.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you very much.
My guest has been Sean Brodrick, Senior Editor at WeissRatings.com. If you have any questions for Sean, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com and we'll ask that question for you. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.